Hi everyone, it's Nat here. Hope you're all doing well. So I'm on with my final process video of my Tracie Fox guest design team project before I show you the flip through of my journal. So in this video, I want to show you how I fabric cover my book cover. And I also want to show you, which I've shown a few times, how I sew my signatures in, but because we're doing the pianola envelope, I want to show you how I muddle around and try and sew that one in. Okay, so I have this velour which came from a top of mine that I don't use anymore. I love the colour of it, so I thought I'd use that for the cover. I haven't gotten further than that with my cover, so I'm not sure whether I'm going to embellish it much or not, because I do just love the feel and the look of the velour, but I will figure that out afterwards. Now, what I have learnt to do when I'm fabric covering is, if I've got enough fabric, I use a bit of off-cut and do a bit of a test. I have had issues before where the glue has seeped through, so that would determine the type of glue that I use to cover with. Now, I love using my Helmar's fabric glue because I know it holds really tight. So, and sometimes when I'm putting that on my covers, I get a few blobs of it. So I like to know how thin I need it to not have it show through the fabric. So I've got a little offcut here. And I'm just going to stick it straight down and then just assess. Now, I can't see any bits where it's coming through, which is great. So it means I don't have to be too careful. A little careful because, of course, if I had a big lot, it probably would come through. And if I pressed it down onto a big lot for a while, it would show through. But that's looking really good, so I'm happy with that. So I've cut a piece of my fabric ready to cover my cover. And I've got my Bryce Courtney cover here ready to go, which we cut down in our first video. So that's just going to sit on like that. And I've got margins nice to fold over. So what I like to do is the spine first. I get it in its position, fold it over, get the spine where I want it, and then I know it's where I want it to do the both the back and the front of the book. So just a nice lot of glue on my spine. And I'm going to get a nice lot of glue in this little dip there as well. And then I can just make sure I haven't moved my cover too much. That looks pretty good. And now I'm going to tip it over. I'm just lightly pressing it to begin with, so I don't get that glue coming through. We want to press it down in the little dip as well. Then as it sort of dries, I can give it a bit more of a firm press. So just run my bone folder up and down there. I like to make sure it's really well stuck down in the little crevices. Looking pretty good. Then of course we can do the cover. I like to just lay it down first. Get a bit of glue on this bit. There, that's better. And then of course we do the same for the other side. Usually I'd do it like this, and then when you've got the glue on you can just go like that and you know that's all flat. Got to do in the dip as well when we do this side. And then we just flip this over like that. a light press. And go in with our bone folder and make sure it's adhered in the little ditch. So it's as simple as that. So now what we want to do is cut these corners down a bit. Looks like I moved my cover a bit 'cause it's got a whole heap over this side and not much at all over that side, but there's still enough to pull it over. Might even trim the other side down a bit. So I'll grab my ruler. My cutter. I'll just trim this. So that's going to go down like that, and that's going to go across, but I do the across bit first. So we're going to stick both the sides down. And then I might end up leaving the top and the bottom till after I've got my signatures in. But anyway, we'll get these end bits done. So we just want a nice blob of glue on the inside cover. Like so. Then we can pull this over. I don't want to stretch it too much. And while it's wet, you can just check that it looks nice and smooth in case you need to pull it up and do it again. But that's looking very nice. I'll do the same on the other side. I'll just check that, and it's looking pretty good. All right, so that's what that looks like, and then we'll fold these over. Now I can trim the little corner bits or just fold them in when I fold that over, but I might end up putting corners on just to make it nice and neat. I find it very hard to get neat corners, especially when I'm using this thicker sort of fabric. So that is our cover for now. It's looking beautiful. So we'll leave that to dry on the side, and I will get on with sewing these signatures in. Now I've got my spine piece that we're going to sew our signatures into. I cut this when I prepared the cover, and it's about 4.5 centimetres wide, and it's the same length or height as my book cover. I've also got another piece of my velour here, which I have cut the same length as this and a fair bit wider, because what we do with that is sew our signatures in to this, and then we stick this onto that bit of chipboard like that. And these bits here help, when we stick them down, that really helps keep the signatures in nice and firmly. So what we have to do is measure where we're going to sew our signatures in, which I always find difficult. We do have 5 signatures in this one. It's getting quite big, so if I keep sticking stuff in it, it's not going to fit in the cover. So as I said, we're about 4.5 centimetres wide by my measurements. Yep. So we want to half that, which would be about 22.5 of a so 22.5 millimetres basically. There's our 2, and then 2.5 would be about there. And then we do the same on the bottom. So 2 and 2.5 is our 22.5. I'm going to rule a line between my dots. So that's the line that our envelope's going to be sewn to. So now we want to figure out the middle of here. Now for the envelope, I'm going to do just a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. That should be quite firm enough to hold the envelope. But for my signatures, I'm going to do a 5-hole pamphlet stitch because they're quite bulky and heavy. They've got a lot of embellishments in them. So let us have a look. So 21 centimetres and 7 millimetres. I'm going to write that one down. 21.7. Yeah. So that would be 10.5, 10.5. And then half of 7 is 3.5, 10.8.5 by the looks. So that's 10 centimetres, and then we want 8.5 millimetres, so 5, 6, 7, 8.5. We put a little dot there. That's where we want our middle hole, and it will be the same place for all of my signatures. But I'll rule the other lines afterwards. I just want to get the 3 holes for this, and then we know what measurements we're doing. And then I think I'll go in about 2.5 centimetres from each end for my other holes. So 2.5. Okay, so that's got the dots where we want to punch holes for our envelope. Now we've got to create another 2 lines either side of that for our 4 signatures, and that's going to be the tricky part. Okay, so I think I'm going to put the first and last signature, I'm going to go in 5 millimetres from either end, which won't be as much allowance as I give it on the inside pages, but that's because we'll have a bit of room where our covers are. So I'll get my right pencil because we're doing little measurements here, so I need a pencil that's fine tipped, not this big lumpy thing. I'll just measure that again with my fine tip. So 5 millimetres. So one side of our pages from the middle will sit over this side, and then the other will sit over the other side of the line, and I'm going to give the ones over the other side of the line more room, because where we've got the dips in the cover, that allows a few more millimetres for us, for our pages to fan out. I hope that's going to be enough, I tell you, because they're big signatures. So I will just rule that one as well. There are outer lines now. We've got our inner signatures to do. So we're doing 6 millimetres from the middle. Yep. So we want 6 from the middle. Probably doesn't make any sense, but and then 6 from the middle over this side. And then we rule a line there. All right, so our envelope's going to be there. We've got a signature here and a signature here, a signature there and a signature there. And this big gap here is room for this signature and this signature's pages to go out. Yeah. Now, fingers crossed that works. So now we've got to do the dots for our other lines. So we had 10.8 to the middle. Now what I'm going to do here is put T here for top and B here for bottom. So we're going 10.5, 6, 7, 8.5. So we put a dot there. We do the same over this side. I'll do it the easy way this time. 5, 6, 7, 8.5. Dot there. And if you rule a line between them, you know where the dots go for these signatures. So we do the same for our 2.5 in at the top here as well. Because we're doing 5-hole pamphlet stitch, we now have to go about halfway between these dots on either side of the middle for all of these lines except where we're sticking the envelope bang in the middle. So we'll see how many centimetres it is. It's just about 8.5. 4 makes it easy, so that's 4.2 centimetres. We will want our dots. That's 4.2 there. 4.2 there. So this should be about the same, yep. 4.2. So we've got our grid of where we want to put our holes now. So it takes a bit of work figuring that out, but you've just got to remember to allow expansion in your signature pages either side. So our envelope's not going to expand a lot, so we've left like 1 millimetre either side, which is definitely not a lot. And then we've got about 5 millimetres for each side of each signature to be able to expand. Looking at my signatures, that's not a lot. We'll see how we go. All right, so next thing we want to do is stick this to our cloth. And would be sticking it like that so we can see the grid that we've made, because it would be a dilemma if we hid the grid. That's looking pretty good. So we'll get some glue on that. So we just want to get this down about even in the centre. It's not looking too bad. And then of course we let that dry with our cover. So the next job is to poke our holes in our spine piece here that we've measured up, and I've got this lovely awl that Carolyn gave me. Thank you, Carolyn. So you just want to carefully go through all these holes. Now I've just got some of this packaging underneath. I love this stuff, so if you get any of that with your IKEA or whatever furniture that you're buying at the time, keep some of that for stuff. You can put it too high as well, and that's really good, because sometimes I do go through to my mat. So I'm just going to go through. It's going through really easy, actually, a lot easier than I thought. Now, with a lot of fabrics, you can see the hole through on the other side. With this, I think I'm going to have trouble, so that's going to be a challenge when it comes to... Oh, no, you can see where it's puckered. Good. It can be difficult sometimes when you're sewing back through. Okay, so that's given us all of our holes there. Now the next thing I've done is made a template, which is just a piece of paper that should be the same length as our cardboard, just a little over, but that's all right. And I've folded it in half, and I've made it wide enough so that we can put this inside our signatures and clip it to our signatures. So I fold it in half that way first, and I line it up against a set of our 5 holes here that we measured. This is just my way of doing it. And I just put a little dot where each hole is. And this will be a template for our signatures for the 5-hole pamphlet stitch. But it's also got the same measurements as the 3 holes in the middle for our envelope. So I do that, and then you can fold it back the other way to put inside your signatures. So these are my signatures. So as you can see, they're getting pretty bulky. So that is going to be interesting. But you never know till you try. All right, so now I've got to just figure out which one we want where. I know this is our first one. So this is where you just want to make sure all the pages are up the right way. Don't think we've got anything that's going to be a problem. There. And that your pages are nice and even. Might move this one just up a little bit to the centre. Sometimes I like to grab a ruler, just press them together. And this is where you get your template. Now the template, what I didn't do and I should have done, is write T for top on that, because sometimes your measurements can be a little bit out. So let's just line that up again. That's pretty good. So we'll write T there for top and B there for bottom. Now I'll fold it back this way. And then we put that in the middle of our signature. So we know that's the top. Then we find our clips, which I have not got yet. It's looking pretty good. And then we clip that on. Then we're ready to punch holes into this signature. So you can see the dots in there in our template. So that's all of our holes punched there. Beautiful. So that one's ready to sew in. Now, I've got to figure out which twine I want to use. I do have some of this here, which I think will look rather nice. I did have some twine that was the maroon colour that we've been using, but it was very soft and you could pull it and break it, so I thought, no, I better not use that. This is nice and hard, this is. So I'll grab about 3 lengths since we're doing the 5-hole pamphlet stitch. And find my scissors. Use my little needle, I think. I like this little needle. It's slightly blunt, which is good, and has a really nice big eye. I do have a big bookbinding one too, but that's a bit thicker. Okay, so we grab our board, that's the top. So we match that up with the top. And we're going to sew this signature being the first into this first lot of lines here. And I've got to decide whether I want any dangly bits in the middle. Danglies in the middle might look nice. So now at this stage you want to take your little template out, but then clip it back up so it holds all your pages together while you sew them in. Like so. We get a little base, we make sure we've got that up the right way. We've got the T up the top on this, and we want to sew this first signature into the lines over this side, because when we turn it over it will then sit at the start of the book. So I think I'll leave a dangle in the middle of this one, so we'll sew through the middle. Oh, if I can find it. So we go straight through the middle, leaving a nice little tail there. And then we go through the hole in the middle over here. Then we go up one. And through this one. And through the top one. And then we go back down to this one here. Then we skip the middle and go down to second to bottom. Then we go back through the bottom. There are different ways of doing this, or different orders depending on where you want your, where you're going to tie it off. But this is the usual way that I like to do it. Then we go back up one. doesn't want me to go back through there. And then we go back through the middle. It is fiddly, but once you get the hang of it, and if you check for knots and that along the way, it's not too hard. Okay, so that's got it sewn in. You want one over each side of this middle piece below, so that when you tie it, hooks this middle piece, or else your knot just falls down through the middle. So I'll take my needle out. And this is where we start tightening up carefully. Now I'll also take my little clips off. We just start wiggling around. If I pull these end ones to get them tight. Now there's some looseness still in the middle. There's a bit of looseness there. Check that you're getting them all nice and tight. It's looking good. One more play. And then tie a double knot. So that's the top of our signature, and we've sewn it into the top up there, so that's all right. Looks like the placement's pretty good. All right, so what I will do is now sew in the next signature, and then I'll come back on to show you me sewing in the envelope. So I have now finished sewing my first two signatures in. So it looks like they're fitting in all right so far. So next we want to put our lovely envelope in there, and I will have it so it goes like that as a page. And then we can slip things in. Now, as I said, this one I've left open, but usually I sew them together and then I've got to try and put them in by sewing, put my hand down in the envelope and sewing it. And when I do that, the way I know where the holes are in that is I grab my piece of paper, my guide, I lie it along the bottom. I'll do it this way, no, that way it's got the marks better. And then I make a little pencil mark where I want to sew. Now we're doing 3-hole pamphlet stitch for this one, so I'd put a mark there in the middle and then at that end. And then what I've done is put my hand in there to bulk it out a bit and then punch the holes through this way. And then I go in here with the needle and try and sew it in, which is quite difficult. But this time, because we've left it open, we can do it as we've done our signatures, but just punching the 3 holes instead. So we want to, this is about flush with both ends there. It's annoying me, that bit. I'll just put it down in there. Make sure that we've got our little guide flat in there, which I like to use the ruler for. Just to make sure we've got it nicely in the centre. Now we don't have much wiggle room because this envelope is almost the same height as the cover. So we've got to make sure that we get this spot on. See how we go. Now, lift that up. Find my awl, which I did see before. There it is. So we're going to punch a hole in the middle. one end and up the other end. So that's looking good. So then we take our little guide out. Now we don't have pages to worry about, so we can just take the clips off because we're not having to hold all the pages together here, which is a nice relief. So we grab. Now I'm just debating, I'm going to tie this up on the back side of our middle piece here, which I'll show you, because we don't want the dangles in the envelope. So as I said, we're having our envelope that way. Make sure that we've got the T up the top. Yes, these are up the right way. That one's up the right way. It's good to double check over and over again, because there's nothing worse than getting to the end of all this and finding out you've got something upside down. So this will be going in like that. And we are leaving our dangles out behind. So we'll go in from the back here into this middle hole there. And then we go through our middle hole in here. And then through the top hole on the inside. Through the top hole in here, if I can find it. No, it's around here somewhere. There it is. Then run it right down to the bottom of the right line there. Through this hole. And we want to go back through the middle. And again back through the middle of our backboard, if I can find it. And we can take our needle off. That's where we tighten up, so we can see it's a bit loose there. And we've got to put one of these underneath. It's a bit tighter. And then do a double knot at the back. Like that. Now just check, that's looking like it's in there quite nice and tightly. So that will be like that, and once I go through and do the finishing touches, I'll just run some glue up both sides here and close our little envelope up, and we'll be able to reach in and grab things out. You can just even leave it open like that, put pockets in there or something, an ephemera, which was another thought that I had, but I'll probably close that one off. Right, so next thing I've got to do is sew in the last 2 signatures, and then I will come back and show you that. So I've sewn all of my signatures in now, nice and chunky, and that's what the back looks like. So I've tied them all off inside signatures except for this middle one, which is the envelope. All 5-hole pamphlet stitch again, except for the middle one, which is the envelope. So the next few things I have to do is, as you can see, I've got some tabs and lace, but I need to put a lot more in, but I'm going to do that afterwards because I needed to see how bulky it was in the cover before I go putting too much more in. So we have to stick this in now. Need some strong glue to hold that in. So that will go in like that. And then once that's all dry, we'll fold these ends over. So what I think I might do first is just chop this bit down a little bit because it's very hard to tuck that length in under my signatures, but I do want to tuck a little bit under my signatures to make it neat. So what I will do is chop down like that. And across like that. I always chop more off as I'm doing it if I feel the need. It's a bit crooked, but that doesn't matter because that will be under my signatures. Do the same on this bottom end. Right, hopefully that'll be all right. Now, that should work. I might just taper these edges a tad as well, bringing all this cotton with me. Okay, I think we're ready to do some sticking now. That is the top, and I know that because that's where we cut some off. That's the top because it's got the T. Double check our signatures are all up the right way. There's our envelope. Now that signature is up the right way. That one's up the right way. Great. There's a fabric flip in here that's all over the place. So I'm just trying to get that down. So I might clip this out of the way. Which I don't usually do, but the type of fabric it is quite annoying. Just going to clip this to the signature page. We'll just hold it out of the way while we stick the boards together, and then I'll be able to see that I'm getting them even. And check that we've got it up the right way. It's all ready to go. So now we're going to put lots of glue on this and then stick it as even as we can to the board that we've put in here. I was almost going to do a third board because these signatures are heavy. And I'm worried it might warp, but we'll see how we go. I usually only do the 2, but there again, I usually only have 3 signatures. But that's the way you learn, isn't it? If you do something that doesn't work out, you certainly remember. So just turn this sideways. I'm just getting my boards to sit on top of each other as even as I can. Check this side. That's looking pretty good. Apply a bit of pressure to squish them together. Now I've got to unpin these. Get a ruler. Get my heavy one. And I just squish the boards together. And go in between my signatures and give it a bit of a push. Don't want to damage anything. You don't really want to let your pages all drop to the sides because that will put pressure on the spine. So you want to keep them upright like this until it's dry. Again, I'm just checking that I haven't moved anything. Looks good. All right, so what I'm going to do is put it like this, and I'm going to sit it like that for an hour or two so it dries really, really well. I've got this big thing. I've got my box of stamps. So I think it's wedged quite well there between my stamps and my other container. So I'm just going to leave it sitting like that for an hour or two, and then we'll be back to finish it off. So I let my journal sit for a couple of hours. So hopefully the spine's nice and dry and it stays in there for us. So what we need to do now is stick these bits down. So that'll involve putting glue in the little ridge here and on here, and then sticking this part down on both sides. So what I will do is, I don't want to put too much pressure on the spine again, so we'll put something behind it just to help it stay upright a bit when I do this. Now I might need to clip these together so they stay out of my way. Let's see if it works. Yeah, that works good. So it's just to hold them out of the way. So hold this piece up. Just shift that back, that's a bit better. I'm just going to hold the piece of fabric up the whole way if I can. Just so I can get my glue in the little ridge. And then we'll get some out here as well. And we'll stick that down. And I'll get my little bone folder and just run it in that ridge where we put the glue. Just like pushing it down in the ridge so that our cover will fold up nicely. All right, so that's that side. Be careful that we don't stick the page to any wet bits. We'll turn it around, do the other side. Okay. Just make sure that nothing's sticking where it shouldn't be here. It's looking good. Now we've got to work on folding these bits down. Now, I think I'll cut a bit more off of this Don't want too much bulk in little ditches there. So I'm just cutting it down so it's not all going in there. So I think we're pretty safe to fold this down. Figure out if our corner's going to be neat enough. Well, I'll put a little bit of glue in there and push this bit down, and that should keep that neat. Now it's going to need a bit more glue there, but I'll worry about that after we've done the middle bit, I think. We can go around and tidy it up a bit. Same with in there. I'll probably get my little glue bottle to finish that off. Now I've got to turn it around. So I'll just move my container full of stuff. How did that happen? So that we can do this bit. Okay, now I'll turn it around again. We'll do up here. So that should go over neat enough. And this can just do with a bit of a... Just cut a bit more of a slant in it. Okay, so that's those end bits folded over. Instead I'll add a bit more glue with my fine tip glue just to stick down these bits and fix the corners a little bit, but I probably will stick corners on this just to make it neat. I mean, it's not too bad though. Now the next thing I have to do is my little end bits. This gets a bit challenging, probably more challenging for you to be able to see. So I'll be getting glue in here and then folding that up. Might even have to trim it down just a little bit more in some spots. We'll see how we go, because I've got to try and push it under the signatures a little bit. So I might trim it a little bit more. That should do. Just going to push it under. That gives us a nice neat edge there, which I like. So we'll do that again with the other side. dry. Make sure it closes. Nice. So that's that bottom bit too. So as I said, I'll go around with the fine tip and just any loose bits I will stick down properly, but otherwise that is our cover. It's absolutely beautiful. I love it. So I'll decide and I'll have a look around, see if I've got something I want to put on the cover. If not, it will stay like this because I love it like this. So that is our journal, and this is the last process video I'm doing, but stay tuned because hopefully in the next 24 hours I'll be able to do the final flip through for you. So take care everyone, be good, and I will see you again soon. Make sure to check out below for Tracie Fox's social media links, as well as the link to her Etsy shop, Love Junk Journals, where I got the beautiful kit that I'm using in this. Well, two kits. It's the Dusty Floral pages and the Dusty Floral ephemera kit. Take care. Bye.